Today we're talking about how much you should be charging for cash physical therapy. Is there a formula for charging high rates and making the investment a no-brainer? I'm talking about people like Dr. Ben or Dr. Philip that reach multiple 5 figures per month in a matter of weeks by implementing the right pricing strategy in completely blue-collar towns in the middle of nowhere. They did it by hacking buyer psychology, so patients don't see price, they see value. Now it turns out there's an evidence-based framework for doing this, and the top brands in the world are using this to charge premium prices in the most saturated, competitive, and commoditized markets. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the whole thing. First, the psychology behind why people want to invest in cash physical therapy. And then the 4 best pricing techniques that you can use to get patients to see your value and invest without hesitation. By the way, I'm Jordan Mather, and for the last 12 years, growing physical therapy businesses is all I do, every single day. Now, the building blocks of all of this is the psychology of pricing, and it's pretty simple. Buying expensive, status elevating, and scarce items triggers dopamine within our brains, giving us a reward system for doing something that feels good. And the more dopamine spikes, the more people love the experience of buying. But that's not even the cool part. The more expensive something is, the more pleasure we actually get from it, even when it's identical to cheaper options. And Stanford proved it with wine. At a series of wine tastings, they gave everyone 3 wines and told them to rank them. One was cheap, one was mid-priced, and one was labeled expensive. Now, the wine labeled more expensive was the most popular by far. It was described as having a better aroma, more flavor, and overall just more enjoyable. But what they didn't know is they were all the same wine. What something costs has a massive impact on how much dopamine is released in the brain. It determines how we experience and perceive it, even when it's irrational from a financial standpoint. So if you want to charge higher rates that people love to invest in and tell their friends about, you only have to figure out one thing. How do I consistently trigger the dopamine reward system so that my prices become a no-brainer investment? And that's exactly what I'm going to break down for you in this video right now. The big question is what actually triggers that dopamine release in people's mind when they're considering cash physical therapy. Well, it turns out the dopamine that gets released when people invest in cash-based services comes from 3 areas: value, contrast, and relevance. Let's break it down. Value is what people actually gain by working with you. Think of it like the purpose. For instance, if you go in-network for treatment because it's rational, familiar, and cheap, well then the thing you're getting out of it is just pain relief. But if you go to one of our cash clinics, it's because you want something new or step-by-step guidance to achieve a particular goal that goes beyond just pain relief. Something that's more transformational that helps you achieve or maintain a certain identity or a level of status. Now these 2 sides, pain relief and transformation, make up the 2 sides of the physical therapy value spectrum. So when a patient chooses a clinic, it's to get out of pain, achieve something transformational, or something in the middle. So that's the value component, the overall purpose of why someone chooses a particular clinic. But that isn't what really gets patients to see your premium prices as a no-brainer. So the question is, what actually gets patients with great insurance to say yes to cash-pay services? What gets prospects to pay a premium is the magnitude of the value. The greater the magnitude, the more dopamine gets released. And the more dopamine that gets released, the more prospects want to invest. So if you're trying to charge premium rates and want to make them an absolute no-brainer, well then you need to maximize the amount of value towards your patients. And this is where the other 2 factors come in. Now, contrast is the most important piece in this equation. It's the magnitude, the strength of the value. For example, when a prospect calls to book an appointment at a clinic and they get asked generic questions and a standard intake form and some appointment reminders, the difference between what they expect and received is pretty small. But if a prospect calls me and I take the time to actually listen to their story and I keep asking questions until I understand how this issue is impacting them personally, their career, their family, and their activities, they feel heard, they have clarity, and they see the value in what it is we're doing, all before they even get scheduled. And then after they get scheduled, I send them a welcome video of me reviewing their intake form, re-outlining the process, sharing another patient success story, and reaffirming my confidence that I can actually help. Well, that blows away their baseline expectations. That's a huge contrast and therefore more value. Again, it's all about the difference between expectations and reality. That difference is called contrast. Let's take a look at another example. If you're charging premium rates, but your evaluation experience covers the same generic points and feels the same as other evaluations they may have had, their expectations and their reality are going to be pretty similar. So they aren't going to get enough value from the evaluation to justify paying more than a copay. But if they walk into your evaluation, are instantly greeted by a welcome sign with their name and their goals on it, and then you help them shift their beliefs around what's possible for them by sharing patient success stories, and then give them undeniable proof that you can help by testing them, treating them, and then retesting, well then that reality greatly exceeds expectations. That's a huge contrast, and therefore massive value. So all you have to do to maximize value is to create a massive difference between what your patients are expecting to get and what you actually give them. And this is why patients flock to people like Dr. Ben, who was able to scale his practice to $20,000 a month in just 10 weeks. Every single touch point he has with a prospect exceeds expectations. From the questions he's asking on the consultation call, to the personalized videos that he's sending to each prospect once they get scheduled, to his evaluation style, and to the gift bags that he gives each and every one of his new patients. The experience that he provides is significantly better than any other physical therapy clinic. And that's a ton of contrast. And that's why, subconsciously, patients love investing into his premium rates and telling their friends. Max contrast equals max value. Now, the third factor that determines strength of value is called relevance. If contrast is the size of the value, well then relevance is the precision. For example, if I come in for a pickleball injury, and you test and measure movements relevant to pickleball players, then offer a 10-visit pickleball recovery program, you've then achieved maximum relevance. Think of it like cornhole. The contrast is the size of the bag, and the relevance is where it lands on the board. The closer the bag lands to the hole for the patient, the more valuable you become, and the more patients see past your prices and only see the specialized value being provided. In other words, if you want the most amount of dopamine being released in your patients' minds, and therefore getting the most buy-in from them, you want the most amount of value targeted as precisely as possible towards your ideal patients. Contrast plus relevance equals max value. This is the science of how dopamine is being released in the brain when it comes to investing in cash physical therapy. Now, that first part was a lot of theory. So as promised, here are 4 tactical tips that you can use in your cash practice to maximize contrast and relevance, making sales easy. These 4 tips are what to charge and why, how to sell more often with less selling, how to make your high prices sound like a fantastic deal, and how to get your patients to say yes to your treatment packages before you even recommend one. Most PTs start out charging $100 to $150 per visit because they think it's going to make getting patients easier. It doesn't. Remember that Stanford wine experiment I was telling you about? Lower rates means lower perceived value. And low perceived value means more objections and rejection. And the people who just want a good deal still think you're expensive because a copay is still cheaper. On the other hand, when you charge premium rates, it gets people believing that you're an expert. And newsflash, you are. This is why when you're just starting out and honing your skills, charge a minimum of $180 per visit. And if you're confident in your skills, charge a minimum of $200 per visit. And if those prices sound crazy, look around you. My movers charge us $180 an hour to move furniture. You're a doctor. Charge what you're worth. But don't do what most physical therapists do and stop there. Bundle your visits together in 6, 10, and 16 visit packages at a discount. This is how you sell more with less selling. Instead of having to sell patients on every single visit, you only have to sell them once. And there's always a percentage of your patients who would rather pay it all up front to save money. And if you do it right, half of your patients will pay in full, creating quick influxes of cash flow coming into the practice. It is super easy to hit $10,000 plus per month doing things this way. But if you don't offer it, people can't buy it. But selling packages isn't just good for business. Psychologically, it's even better for patients. Let me explain. Patients who invest in cash packages are more committed to achieving an outcome. It's how our brains are wired. It's called the consistency and commitment principle. A guy named Robert Cialdini wrote about it in his book Influence, which sold over 5 million copies worldwide. Once somebody commits to something, especially publicly or financially, they feel psychological pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. Before offering packages inside of our clinic, patients averaged just 5 visits, and I would say they were mildly motivated. But when we started offering packages, our average visits per patient shot up to 9.1. But it gets even better. Compliance to home programs went way up, and people showed up way more motivated to get started with treatment. And patients who get great outcomes refer their friends and keep coming back. Now, this next principle is even crazier. It's used on you every single day and you don't even know it. And once you see it, there's no unseeing it. It's like an optical illusion that makes prices that you would normally think are expensive seem like a great deal. It's called price anchoring, or as psychologists call it, anchoring bias. People rely heavily on the first piece of information they receive, the anchor, when making a buying decision, especially around value and price. When you're house shopping, the realtor will always show you the more expensive house that's just outside your price range before showing you the house that they actually want to sell you, because it makes it look cheaper. And every single business does this. Tailors, barbers, car washes, restaurants, you name it, they all do it. The presence of a more expensive option always makes the lower price options appear cheaper. A $1,000 offer by itself, well, that feels expensive. But if at first I present you a $2,000 option and then show you the $1,000 option, now the $1,000 option feels like a good deal. But the order in which you do this is extremely important, because if I offer you a $1,000 option and then a $2,000 option, well, now I just have two expensive options. Offering the more expensive option first and then the cheaper one second creates relief. Whereas if I do it the other way around, it creates tension. Always recommend your most expensive offer first. And when you do, make sure you tell them what the full price is. Here's an example with our clinic. We know patients get the best results with their 10-visit package, which costs $2,400. Now, if we mention this one first, well, then our patient is going to feel like that's pretty expensive, and they're going to be more likely to go with the 6-visit package option where they're not going to get as good of an outcome. We use our 16-visit package as the price anchor. We tell them, most patients in your situation, they go with their 16-visit package option, which costs $3,500. But honestly, based on everything that I'm seeing here, I think our 10-visit package option is perfect for getting you back to X, Y, and Z, and that's just $2,400. See how I created tension with the first price, but then I instantly relieved it with the second one? Now it's just a matter of figuring out the logistics with the patient. If your patient says they can't pay in full, no worries, take their word for it. And if they verbally commit to 10 visits, well, then make them feel special by allowing them to pay as they go at the discounted package rate. Selling this way gives you both cash flow from packages as well as financial stability from patients paying as they go. But there's one final thing that you need to tie all of this together. It changes literally everything and makes mastering sales almost unnecessary. This one thing is the key to ethical influence in getting your patients to decide that they want one of your packages before you even recommend one. It's called the 63-1 evaluation method. This framework, paired with our pricing strategy, turns package conversions into a natural clinical conversation rather than a sales pitch. The result are patients saying yes to your packages without objection or awkward negotiations. Here are the 3 key components: 60-minute one-on-one sessions, 3 patient wins, and 1 treatment recommendation. This is the exact system that our staff are using to convert 90% of evals into cash packages worth more than $2,000 each. And we've been able to maintain that for the last 4 years because it's really, really simple, even if you're a new grad, because it's not about being good at sales. It's all about momentum, which is the amount of mental or physical progress patients make during the initial evaluation. The more momentum you have, the more patients convince themselves that they want to continue with your packages. So the question is, how do you maximize momentum? Well, it turns out it's really more about psychology than sales or clinical skills. When people invest in non-commodity services like cash physical therapy, they first make the decision on whether or not they want to move forward in the emotional center of the brain, the limbic system. They then justify and rationalize the investment in the prefrontal cortex. It's basically our mind's investment security system. To make investing in your cash packages a no-brainer, all we have to do is create 3 patient wins in the order that their mental security system processes buying decisions. The first one is an emotion-based win. This one's the most important. If we don't win them over emotionally first, well, then their brain can only make a buying decision based off of logic and rationale. And guess what? Paying $200 for physical therapy will never be more rational than just using your insurance. Without them being emotionally invested, they just won't see your value. No value, no commitment, no sale. Now, emotional commitment happens when beliefs are shifted. Beliefs like doctors don't really listen or understand me, physical therapy doesn't work, surgery is inevitable, or giving up running is just a part of getting older. You know different, so show them. Spend extra time during the subjective assessment to really listen to their story. Lean in. Ask questions to gain deeper understanding. Find out what their pain is stopping them from doing, why that's important, how it's making them feel, how it's impacting other areas of their life, and ultimately what it is that they want to accomplish and why that's important to them. That puts them back into the emotional state they were in when they first decided that they needed to get help. We call that the buying pocket. Now, once their emotional state peaks, shatter their fears and their false beliefs by sharing relevant patient success stories. By actively listening, asking questions, and giving them hope, you're satisfying their brain's emotional requirements to move forward with an investment, but not the logical requirements, not yet, because the prefrontal cortex is now scanning for any red flags to disrupt the buying process. They're asking themselves, will this actually work for me? We want to satisfy this initial hesitation by creating an action-based win. Get them doing the very activity that they've been avoiding and test them and write down every single thing you find that could be contributing to the pain and symptoms they're experiencing. Getting them to do the activity that they've been trying to get back to creates an activation point in your prospect's mind, which is basically just another dopamine spike created by progress. The simple action of just taking the first step creates momentum and signals to the brain to keep going. This creates pressure in the brain to not give up versus having to start all over. Now we've won them over emotionally, and now the front part of their brain is now saying, this feels different than what I've tried before. I'm already making progress. Now you just have to give them the last thing that their brain is craving. Undeniable proof that takes their mind from saying, this feels different, to I know this is better. Give them an outcome-based win by applying treatment based on your findings and then retest them. Do whatever it takes to create intra-session change. Whether it's pain, range of motion, or something else, no matter how small of an improvement they make, celebrate it with them. Make it a big deal. And then just reassure them that you can get them back to doing X, Y, and Z. Once you've done all of that, you've gotten through the 3 security checkpoints in your prospects' minds. You got them emotionally invested, you created momentum, and you showed them undeniable proof that you can help them get to where they're trying to go. We took them from maybe this will work to I believe this will work to this is working, all within 60 minutes. Now, most PTs completely botch this next part, the treatment recommendation. Most PTs fumble with their words and then list off a complex list of different options that the patient has. Keep it simple. Just give them one treatment recommendation. After all, they are there to be told what it is they need, not to be sold something. For instance, if you have a cavity, does the dentist pull out a pricing sheet that says something like, hey, I can fill half the cavity, the full cavity, or cavities you don't even have? Of course not. They tell you what it is that you need and you listen. Your patients want the exact same thing. Just tell them exactly what it is that they need based off your expert opinion and then tell them what it costs. Just don't worry about making the sale. Just recommend the treatment that you know is going to get them the absolute best result. Not a good enough result, the absolute best result. The worst thing that can happen is they say they can't afford it. And if they do, just follow the previous step and downsell them to a pay-as-they-go option or to a smaller package. And because you satisfied their mind's buying requirements, they'll listen. It really is that easy. And that is how you stop competing on price and start winning on value. Remember, pricing isn't just a number on a page. It's the story that you're telling your patients on what their future looks like, with you guiding them there. Because the truth is, people don't buy physical therapy. They buy belief in an outcome. Belief that their life can be better, that someone finally understands them, that investing in your plan is investing in themselves. And when you create massive contrast, dial in your relevance, and package it all together with a momentum-driven evaluation, you don't have to sell. You just have to show up and then let dopamine do the heavy lifting and patients convince themselves that they want to work with you. That's exactly what Dr. Ben, Dr. Philip, and hundreds of our clients did to reach 5-figure months really fast. Not because they were the best PTs in town, but because they understand how to make premium feel like a no-brainer to their prospects. And you can too. So here's the final takeaway. Stop asking, can people afford me? And start asking, can I create so much value that they can't afford not to? Because when you get this right, your patients won't just pay your premium rates. They'll thank you for the opportunity. Now, if this all hit home, let me know in the comments which tactic you're most excited about implementing first. And hey, if you want more breakdowns like this, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button. Peace.